I must say, one of the most important things I get to do when I come to settings like this is tell our community how extraordinarily proud they should be of our police service. I've worked with police officers throughout Canada, abroad, United States, and truly, genuinely, I have never worked with a more dedicated, professional, and kind group of people than the men and women that we have here in our police service. They are extraordinarily invested in the community, and so you guys should be extraordinarily proud. It really is something special. And despite having lived here, we bought our house here in 2001, so almost 2 decades. Despite having lived here for many years, I'm only now, with the privilege of this job, getting to really appreciate how special the city of Guelph is, because now I get to come to things like today's lunch. And it really is, it's a function of the extraordinary volunteers, community leaders, business leaders. Guelph is an extraordinarily special place to be. Some people have asked me kind of a brief background. When we have chats like this, they always ask you to send a bio, and my goal is to send the shortest bio possible. Because when you come to these things, if it's too long, everybody's thinking he sent a really long bio. So very briefly, I have my wife Louise, 3 kids, Matthew, Nathan, and Sarah. They started kindergarten in Courtright Hills, finished there, and 2 of them are still in Centennial. One of them has deferred his acceptance to Guelph as he's enjoying 1 more year of the good life in high school, in 12 plus. And Sarah's in grade 11, and her goal is to be on the basketball team here someday. So my wife did her undergrad here. She started here in '89. I went to McMaster. Sorry about that. So with the exception of about 8 years that my wife very patiently wandered around a couple of provinces with me, we've kind of been here ish since 1989. When we had the opportunity to move back to Ontario, it was a no-brainer for us. This is where we chose to live. Like Liz alluded to, have had the privilege of working in a variety of places. Started out in Quebec, training in Saskatchewan, worked for about 9 years in Manitoba, and then have been in Ontario since 2001. You will find, I'll touch on some of these things more as we go. One of the key things that I think is so important is community engagement, community wellness, organizational engagement, organizational wellness. We simply cannot look after our community if we're not mindful of the health of our people. So operational resilience for first responders, we've come a long way. We still have work to do, but it's like they are literally our people. They are our greatest asset in the first responder community. One of the things I will work very, very hard to do in my role as the new chief of police is I will seek all the time to undersell and over-deliver. It never works well if you do the other way around. So often, if I'm asked something I don't know, I won't pretend. I'm happy to say I don't know. For me, I have defined intelligence as being smart enough to know what you do not know. And so I will not make stuff up. I will engage brilliant people like Scott Green, one of our members, and get answers to questions when required. But so undersell, over-deliver. Since arriving, people have asked me, what's my vision? And very simply put, it's not my vision, it's our vision. Whether it be the community, the service. I think together, policing, there was a gentleman named Sir Robert Peel who kind of started, he's kind of the father of policing. And a couple hundred years ago, he talked about the police basically exist to serve the community, and they are but full-time members of the community doing policing. So it should never be an us and them. The police are the community, and the community are essentially the police. We just happen to be the ones that have the privilege to do this job as our occupation. I think it's incredibly important that our service, we exist to serve the public and earn their trust. We should build strong, inclusive relationships within our community and and abroad, sorry. That includes other communities, other police services, whether it be provincial or federal. There are enormous opportunities that our service and community can benefit from if we leverage all those relationships. so much. Basically, everything comes down to the relationships we have with human beings. So the organizations are but a collection of the people. So I put a lot of value in the relationships and connections that we make with each other. Very broadly, from a vision perspective, our service, I want to lead by example in everything we do, whether it be how we serve our community, how we engage our community, how we look after our members. I want every other police service to look at us and think, wow, that's pretty cool what they're doing in Guelph. And so lead by example, and I want to make our community proud of what we do. So our people are proud, our community is proud, and so that together is how we build the vision. So it's certainly not my vision. Everything we do is founded on a few key values. I think people have probably seen on our vehicles the motto, pride, service, and trust. So that everybody kind of operationalize or kind of would define those things for themselves. How I'm trying to define it, or how we've been articulating it within the service. First of all, you have to articulate it. My 4th day in this new job, we had a town hall with about 150 of our 300 employees showed up actually here. So a couple people I think questioned, why do you want to have a town hall on your 4th day? And the reality is, how can you be the leader of an organization without taking some time to engage your folks, meet your folks, and have a conversation kind of like this? So you get to learn from each other. One of the things we're going to do, I met with our union president the day after or so being announced in this job, and I said, Matt, what do you want from me, police chief? And he said, make decisions. He said, the number one thing I want you to do is make decisions. And we may not like every decision you make, but you have to make decisions. So pride for me means we strive for excellence in everything we do and not perfection. I think that anyone who's worked in a large organization has sometimes experienced paralysis via analysis. You know, like I believe that perfection, our best completed, is infinitely better than perfection still being researched. And so that's one of the things we're going to strive for. We recruit from the human race. So we will do our best. We will strive for excellence, realizing perfection's not possible. And when we make decisions, there'll be database decisions. So it shouldn't be in an organization like this, we shouldn't make decisions based on gut feelings or how we feel based on whatever. I should be, in my role, be able to come to a room like this or to council and say, here's the data, here's the observation, this is why we think it's the right thing to do. So database decisions. Look for new ways of doing business, and I think often people think new ways of doing business means iPhones and tech and technology, and I think there's a value there, but sometimes I think we have to remember sometimes what's old should be new. Anybody Andy Griffith fans? There's got to be people here who know who Andy Griffith was. I'm now in rooms where people look at me like, who was Andy Griffith? I think most people here know who Andy Griffith was. I think he had it figured out. The simple things are the big things. Recently, Mark O'Connell is our new downtown officer. Mark's been in Guelph for 51 years. He's grown up here. He loves being the downtown officer. He's engaged, he's motivated. Things like the community seeing our members walking downtown, engaging with them, saying hello. The absence of crime, in my opinion, is a much better demonstration of how we're doing as a service in the community than how many arrests we made. In a perfect world, we shouldn't have to make arrests. So as we seek to be new and innovative, I hope to have a look at things that worked really, really well that we've maybe gotten away from over the years. Examine opportunities to work with other partners. I know one or two people in the mounted police, and there are some tremendous opportunities that we can learn from them and vice versa. So it could be training for our people, working with them for different initiatives or operations. So looking to do things like that. And then at the end of the day, I want to strive to be the pride of our community and the pride of our employees. That's kind of, that for me, that's what strive for excellence means. We exist to serve the community and earn their trust. I think many people in policing over the years have heard people say the police exist to serve the community, and that's obvious. But for me, I think it's incredibly important we add and earn their trust, because in every way, how we do business is as important as the business we do. So the integrity piece in everything we do, that should include transparency, that should include objectivity, that should include database decisions. But serving the public is, as I say, obvious, but we have to make sure we earn their trust in every decision. So even if I make a decision that turns out to, in hindsight, maybe it wasn't the perfect decision, I need to be able to say why I made it based on the data, based on the consultations and engagement, and we live with the consequences. How else do we earn our community's trust? I spent last Sunday, I got to get a few minutes with all the first-year varsity athletes at the university. It was a wonderful opportunity. I think they thought the new chief was going to tell them what you're not allowed to do. But that's not what I was there for. I want us to realize, as a police service, youth, depending on who you ask, are 22% of our population. From my perspective, they are 100% of our future. So in many ways, if we make a concerted effort to engage our youth, to learn from them, I think lots of times the grown-ups can learn as much or more from the young people than they can from us. I reminded them when I was there on Sunday, as they get older, they will realize they can learn something from us. But that's sometimes, my teenage kids haven't figured, they're brilliant. My teenage kids are convinced that their dad is not. Communication, collaboration is another way, whether that mean conversations, so being here. I've had a few conversations, for example, with Marty downtown, some of our residents and business owners downtown, to the greatest extent possible, being engaged and sincerely listening. I think from all of us, especially those of us who have the privilege of leading organizations, you don't learn a thing while you're speaking. So if you want to learn and understand, you have to listen more than you speak. As well, diversity and inclusion. We need to ensure, and that's a big important piece, I'm going to touch a little bit more on that later. As we operate, I think any leader in any organization should realize we are but caretakers of our position or our organization for the relatively small period of time we're there, and the goal should always be to leave a position, organization, community a little bit better than we found it. It's not ours. This is not my position. I happen to be the one who is fortunate enough to be in it at this time. And when in doubt, when we're serving our community, when in doubt, be kind. There's a lot of people in the community who are struggling through a lot of difficult things. Our men and women who work with our service are literally the people in this city who help people navigate life's most difficult moments, whether it be terrible car accidents, whether it be notifying people of the death of a loved one, you name it. If it's a challenging, difficult time in someone's life, it's our men and women who are often part of that. People who struggle with mental health crisis, or people who struggle with addictions crisis. When in doubt, be kind, do your best, do the right thing, and you can't go wrong. There's a gentleman named Brad Meltzer says, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind always. Pretty simple rule. Scott could tell everybody, I'm a pretty simple guy. I think that the little things are the big things. Say hello to people when you see them on the street. If we have our downtown officers walking around, say hello, engage. With our employees, I try at least a couple times a day to wander around our building and have line of sight communication interaction with as many people as possible. The little things are the big things. I think a lot of people who lead organizations, they busy themselves with the transactional items in their email in baskets, but they don't realize the value of just taking care of their folks and saying hello to people in the morning. So strive for excellence, serve the public, earn their trust, and ensure a culture of leadership. Those Pride Service trusts that our people are our greatest resources, and I believe I have the responsibility to empower, mentor, and inspire our people. It's one of those things where if you want to have a culture of leadership, to the greatest extent possible, you need to give people the opportunity to grow, to make decisions, to understand, to lead their own teams. But that can only happen if people feel like supported, where if they make a mistake, and like I said before, we recruit from the human race. So mistakes are inevitable. If people make a mistake, if they have done their best, been kind, been respectful, made database decisions, we support them, we learn from it, and then we try not to make the same mistake several times. But that's how you build a culture of leadership. Timely, moral, and effective decisions. And you guys can't see it, but I have decisions in bold and underlined here, because in this job, I have a responsibility to make decisions. I've told a lot of people since I've been here that for me, there's probably people here who've led organizations before. Often in leadership positions, you might have 20 decisions that cross your desk in a day. 18 of them is regular business, you got to get them done. That's how the company moves. There's probably a couple that they're the ones you got to watch closely, but you can't get hung up on every single thing, because a whole organization can grind to a halt, and you can have a lot of grouchy people if every decision stops on one or two desks. So that's how we're trying to evolve as we grow. Part of being in a leadership culture is being accountable. Whether it be our annual report, whatever we do, we should be open, transparent, and I am accountable. Now in this role, we're kind of in it together as a service, but if I'm engaged, if I'm in this role, the results of our work, I'm accountable for. So it's finding that line between making sure you empower your people, but you better be engaged and know what's going on, because at the end of the day, I have to answer for it. And I'm very, very happy to do that. I'm certain leadership obligations. For example, we're about to start our budget process. And I have, as the new guy, I have a responsibility to give observations with respect to kind of how well positioned we are to move forward. I think that a simple examination of the numbers, our service in the last 10 years hasn't grown at the same rate as the community. So these are the types of things as we look at bandwidth issues, what we can do with the resources we have. We have to be constantly mindful that we are entrusted with public resources. We also have to be mindful how we use those, how we deploy resources. And if I don't give an honest assessment with how well we are positioned to serve this community into the future, then I'm not being a leader. So that's kind of a bit of a spoiler alert, maybe. But that's, and my job's to be a leader, good or bad. I have to tell people, not good or bad, if it's the message people want to hear or the message they don't want to hear, my job is to give the message, supported by data and being objective. Scott, you're going to give me the 10-minute alert, right? Because I've been told you guys leave at 1:30. Whether I'm done or not, you guys leave. Nelson Mandela said, a real leader uses every issue, no matter how serious and sensitive, to ensure that at the end of the debate, we should emerge stronger and more united than before. So there are going to be times when things are good, and we're going to navigate things that are less fun. And the whole idea is, as we navigate difficult times, we do it in such a way so that it's respectful, it's kind, and it's not personal. It's about making decisions, it's about accomplishing the mission, but we need to realize we're in this together as a service, as a community, etc. So I've talked about striving for excellence, serve the public in their trust, build a culture of leadership. Those are three very, very important goals. I think it's also important. There's a couple things that we literally can't accomplish those three if we don't do two other things. Wellness. The wellness of our community. Anybody at the United Way kickoff yesterday? Trevor was there. That was a great example of the stuff going on towards the wellness of our community. We have some challenges. There are people, for example, who struggle with homelessness, mental health crises, addictions. It's not unique to us. It's a human thing. The addictions crisis is something that communities all across North America are struggling with. When we see people struggling, we have to seek to understand, not judge, understand how people have gotten there, understand some of the ways we can work together, but also understand our business owners and residents downtown, they have a very important perspective too. So it's finding that balance. When it comes to us serving the public, the operational resiliency, the how we look after our people to serve the public is an incredibly important piece of our wellness conversation. And it is, in fact, it is kind of the key way we're going to deliver on the mission of serving the public. You're going to find I use things like the mission and execute, because I think for our people, they want to know what are the expectations, what's the mission, and then as we try to accomplish our goals, both as a service and to our community, we have a responsibility to be able to demonstrate the outcomes. So if the new chief says, this is the goal, this is what we're going to accomplish, the new chief needs to come back, whether it be 6 months or 12 months later, and say, these are the metrics, and this is how we delivered on the mission. So that's kind of where I sit. So wellness, and another key piece, diversity and inclusion. I think that for a long, long time, policing had a certain approach, everything from how we did business to how we recruited. I think you're going to find, in some ways, I believe we haven't always captured or told the story or the importance, articulated the importance of diversity as well as we should have. For example, right in the Police Services Act, it says we need to represent the communities we serve. That is obvious. We need to represent the communities we serve. But I think when we talk about diversity and inclusion, it's incredibly important to realize it's not just about representing our communities by the way we look, like the numbers, a statistical representation, but making sure that by being more diverse, just by being more diverse, we're better. And what I mean by that is, if I'm sitting at a boardroom table and Scott is at the head of the table, if everybody at that boardroom table essentially has the same set of experiences, we all played high school football, we all played junior B hockey, we all grew up in the same kind of thing, we reduce the variables, we reduce the data to have good discussions, versus if we're at a boardroom table and everybody has different experiences, different genders, different backgrounds, different ages, different everything, then we broaden the discussion, we enrich the debate, we have more things to consider, and ultimately we make better decisions for the community. So that's the importance of diversity. I believe diversity is much more than we need to just, if we have X number of a certain group in a certain population, our service, we need to fully embrace it and also realize diversity only works if within that organization we enthusiastically embrace inclusion. So if around that table you can have as a diverse group as you want, but you need to know everybody there should feel open and encouraged to share their opinion. Because if you don't have inclusion, the strength of the diversity is not fully leveraged. Some recent initiatives, I got 3 minutes here. I'll talk about one thing that we've changed, that a few people have asked me. Very early into my tenure here, so our approach to media releases for years was everybody, if you got arrested and charged, you were named in the media. Very early into my tenure here, we stopped doing that. And some people have asked me why, including some of our media folks, and everybody has been great. The reason why, in my opinion, the Police Act gives chiefs quite a bit of authority with respect to when and why we do that. Our position is very clear. When the public interest is served, when the public safety warrants it, we will absolutely share information to keep the community safe, to advance investigations for the right reasons. But I don't think the authority we have was ever intended to be a naming and shaming exercise in the media. Whether it be a 20-year-old student who makes a mistake, whether it be a 45-year-old guy with 3 teenage kids in high school who gets charged for impaired driving, I don't think that was designed so that my 3 kids at Centennial get picked on and social media bullied because their dad made a mistake. So it's finding that balance. How do we serve the community and keep the community safe, but how do we do what's right and be kind? So that's one of the things that we've made a fairly significant change on. And at the end of the day, it's about being kind. It's about doing what's right. I'm mindful of what time it is. think that as we move forward, and I'm going to conclude, because it's generally, people generally enjoy if the speaker is done a little bit early rather than late. Sorry, in a short bio? In a short bio. Because you're always thinking, why did he send them such a long bio? As we work together, it's like I'm literally, I was telling Liz earlier, I applied for the RCMP when I was 18 years old. When I started my psych degree at Mac, a few weeks after I finished my degree, I was hired. So all I've ever done, I've been in policing since I was 21 years old. I've had some extraordinarily great jobs in the RCMP, a lot of organized crime jobs and things like that. This is, without a doubt, the best job I've ever had. It's the best community I've ever got to work in. It's the best group of people I've ever got to work with. And every day, ask Scott, I'm a high energy dude. Every day, I can't believe I'm lucky enough to come to work. I'm looking forward to the completion of our renovations. It has been, and I've only been here for 6 months. You know, our employees, a testament to our employees, they have navigated a 4-year, Scott, almost 4-year renovation. Just imagine, we spend more waking time at work than we do at home. They have been living with a renovation for 4 years, while also serving our community, like working shift work. It's an incredible special place. Like, I wish more people, and I spoke earlier to someone, if there's a few people who want a tour someday, sure, we could set something like that up. I doubt we could do everybody at the same time, but it really is such a special place. I feel privileged to come to work. I have way more energy in this job than I did in the last one. RCP was a great place, so I'm not saying anything negative. But it really is, as we move forward, the service we will be mindful of, striving for excellence. We exist to serve the community and earn their trust. A culture of leadership, wellness of our community and our people, and diversity and inclusion. That's kind of going to be our foundational principles moving forward. And that's it.